Hello, hello. So I want to start by just telling you why I have half a beard. If you know. So actually there are two reasons. The first reason is I stopped shaving. That's the reason for this side. And then I was burned many years ago, so I have scars, so this side just doesn't have hair. So it's not that I'm trying to make a fashion of half-face beards. Okay, so I want to talk today about why, when we think about how to design almost everything in the world, we should use social science as a starting point. Why is social science such a good starting point for designing almost anything? And I'll give you a couple of examples. The first example would be, how do we get people to save? How do we get people to save? So the standard answer to think about how to get people to save for a rainy day is to say, let's educate people. Let's tell people that it's really, really important to save. And people would figure out that it's really important, and then they will start saving. But is this the case? Well, here's some results. This is a result from a meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is a way to take all the studies ever to be conducted in a particular area and see how effective is it. So this is a meta-analysis of all the research ever to be conducted on what's called financial literacy, how we teach people about money and seeing what are the outcomes. And here are the outcomes. You teach people about money and saving, planning, debt, cash flow, and so on, increased by 3%, 3 to 4%. Not really great. And it actually gets worse, because it's 3% immediately after they finished learning, and it's even lower for people from lower social economic status, and it goes down over time. So what happened is you teach people about money. In the US, we spend about $700 to $800 million a year teaching people how to think about money. And the total result, if you look at what happens over time, is an improvement of 0.1% in outcome. It's not that people don't remember what they learned, but they don't execute. Right? So the standard approach to saying, let's get people to change their behavior by teaching them, generally doesn't work. And by the way, you can also think about it in your own lives. So for example, how many of you in the last month have eaten more than you think you should? Just kind of general statement, okay? How many people here in the last month have exercised less than you think you should? Okay. Few more questions. How many of you in the last month have at least once texted while driving? Be honest. Okay. How many of you, keep on testing your honesty as well, how many of you in the last month have not always washed your hands when you left the bathroom? It's a little bit more embarrassing, right? Last question. How many of you have ever had unplanned, unprotected sex? Almost nobody. That's amazing. That's amazing. The point is that there's lots of things that we know what's the right thing to do, we just don't execute. So, as a social scientist, how would you approach this problem of getting people to save for a rainy day? So, this is a study that we did in Kenya, in a slum called Kibera. These are very, very poor people. They live on about $10 a week. And the reason we want to help them save for a rainy day, because here is what happens. If you're very poor, you live hand to mouth, you have no access income, and then let's say that one day something bad happens. You become sick, maybe you have a goat that gives you 20% of your income, or the goat is sick. Something happens, and now you don't have enough income to support your daily life. You either borrow at a very high interest rate. In Kibera, interest rate could go up to 10% a week. Or if you have some tools, you have a lantern, you have a bucket, you might have to sell them. So what happened the world over is people who live hand to mouth, something bad happens and life starts deteriorating. So we want to help these people keep a little bit of money. So what are the design principles? The first thing is we want to make it easy to take money in and hard to get money out. So we teamed up with M-Pesa. M-Pesa is the Kenyan payment company owned by Safaricom. And we created a system where people could text money in, but every night the money moved from M-Pesa to an investment bank. And so it was easy to text money in, but if you wanted to get the money out, you couldn't get it from M-Pesa. You had to go on a bus, go to the city, go to the bank, fill a form, wait an hour, take a bus back. It could take 5 hours. And we wanted this on purpose because we wanted it to be easy in, hard out. So imagine we have this system, easy in, hard out, and we give it to lots and lots of people. And then we add things to it. Some people just get this system. Some people get this system plus a weekly reminder that said, try and save 100 shillings this week, about $1. Some people got the same text message, but it's phrased as if it came from their kids. It says, hi mom, hi dad, this is little Joseph, whatever the name of the kid was, try and save 100 shillings this week for our family. Another group got a 10% match. Save up to 100 shillings, we'll give you 10%. Another group got a 20% match. Two other groups also got a 10% and 20%, but they got it with pre-match. Imagine that you're in the 10% condition, and you put 40 shillings, and we give you 4 at the end of the week. So you get 44. You put 4, and we give you 4. But you don't see the 6 that you gave up. So in another condition, we put the 10 shillings, the full match in the beginning of your week. You put 40, we leave 4 in, and we take 6 back. So it's the same thing, but you see the money you did not match. So we have 10% post-match, 20% post-match, 10% pre-match, 20% pre-match. And finally, we had a condition with the coin about this size, and the coin had 24 numbers written on the edges of it. And every week, we asked people to put the coin somewhere visible in their hut, and take a knife and scratch the number for that week. Week 1, 2, 3, 4. Scratch it this way if they didn't save, and this way if they saved. Think about all of those methods. We have financial incentive, we have non-financial incentive, we have the coin. Which one do you think worked the best? So I'll just tell you what people think. What people think is that the match, the 20% will be great, 10% less good, coin, kids, all of that doesn't matter. So that's what people think. What actually happened? The first thing that happened, that giving a system like this to people, just giving it, created saving. It means that people want a system that would help us overcome temptation. You add post-match, 10%, people save a bit more. 20%, basically the same as the 10%, not a big difference. Pre-match, a little bit better, right? Loss aversion works. Here's the thing though, kids, telling people about their kids was as good as 20% plus loss aversion, right? Now, at this point, what we should be thinking to ourselves is, how do we use kids in a better way? And I don't mean child labor, but kids are an amazing reminder to the parents to think long term. But the big surprise of the study was the coin condition. The coin dramatically increased saving over everything else. And the question is why? I'll skip this one slide, but I'll tell you why. So I started thinking about this coin when I was in Soweto. Soweto is a different slum in South Africa. And I walk around in Soweto, and I see a father buying funeral insurance for a week. This is a picture of a funeral in South Africa. In South Africa, funerals are the biggest parties of somebody's life, right? In other countries, it's weddings or something else. In South Africa, it's funerals. People spend up to 2 years of income on a funeral. And what I saw, this very poor father is buying funeral insurance for a week. Just to be clear, it means it would only cover him if he dies in the next 7 days. Right? These are very poor people. They buy small amount of soap and small amount of insurance. He buys this funeral insurance for a week, and in a very ceremonious way, he gives it to his son. And as he does this, I think to myself, without this act of giving the piece of insurance to his son, what would the family see on a day when somebody diverts money into insurance or savings? They would see less. If you're very poor, if you're saving or putting money away, the family would see less. If you're not that poor, they will see less in another time. In fact, if you're a breadwinner and you get pride of bringing things to your family, every time you're diverting money into insurance or saving, you're getting less pride. There's less feedback loop that gets you to be proud. And what the coin was supposed to do was to signal to the family that it's not less, it's just different. Now think about it in a more general way. 1,000 years ago, how did we save? We basically saved in goats, right? We had livestock. Now, the nice thing about having livestock is that you could compete on saving. You can come home and you could see how much saving your neighbor has, and you could see how much saving you have, and we could compete on who has more savings. But over time, we invented money, and then we invented digital money. And what happened? We have this incredibly important activity called spending. We have this incredibly important activity called saving. But the one called saving, we made it invisible. So think about it. How much do you know about what your neighbors are saving? Nothing. How much do you know about what they're spending? A lot. There was actually a very sad study that showed that when people win the lottery, their neighbors start spending more money. It's incredibly human to compete on anything as long as we can measure it and we can see it. And by the way, this study on lottery, I know what you're thinking. Oh, these crazy Americans. No, these were Canadians. No? Good people. So think about it. If we wanted to redesign money, what would we do? The coin is one example, but I'll give you another example. There was a study that took kids on the day that they are born and randomly opened to half of them college savings accounts. Kids are born, half get college savings accounts, half not. And they went to visit these kids when they were 4 years old and tested their cognitive and social skills. Guess what? The kids with college savings account had higher cognitive and social skills. How can it be? Do these kids know? Of course not. Their parents know. Once a month, the parents get a statement that says that this little kid, while still in diapers, has a college savings account. And the parents think about them differently and buy a couple of more books a year and read to them a little bit more. Based on this data and the coin study, we convinced the Israeli government recently to start a college savings account for every kid born from January 2017 on the day that they are born. And when we started this process, the Ministry of Finance said, let's just reduce the cost of college. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing to have a kid that from day zero, their parents and themselves think of themselves and having college savings accounts as reducing the price of college. Now, you can think about how should we design money. But for example, the coin is one example. College savings account is another example. How do we take the activities that are usually not salient, not observable, and make them more observable for the individual, for the family, maybe to society? I want to give you one more example. This is an example that we just did recently. We wanted to help people lose weight. Now, if you came from a social science perspective and you say, how do you help people lose weight? We said we want something that people see and remember and think about. Now, in your house, is there anything in your house that reminds you about health? The bathroom scale. Right? It's the one thing in your house that reminds you about health. And in fact, it's amazing because if you get the bathroom scale, it means that somebody gave you 2 square feet of their house. Good real estate. Take it. So we said, okay, we want to create a new scale. And then we said, what do we know about this scale? And we said, we know 3 things. The first thing is that it's a really good thing to step on a scale every morning. Not so good to step on it at night. The reason, by the way, is not because we weigh a bit too much in the evening. If you step on a scale in the morning, it's like a little ceremony that you step on a scale and you remind yourself that you want to be healthy. If you step on a scale at night, you just go to sleep, you forget about it, the whole thing in the morning. The second thing we know, we talked about loss aversion, this idea that if things go out. Imagine your weight doesn't change on average, but it just fluctuates by 2 or 3 pounds or 2 kilos a day. It just fluctuates. And obese people, weight fluctuates more, and when we try to lose weight, weight fluctuates more. What happens? On the day that your weight goes up, really miserable. A day your weight goes down, slightly happy. But they don't average it out. The average experience is unhappy. How many of you have bathroom scales? How many of you look forward to the experience every morning? Okay, a few, but very, very few. It's mostly bad news, right? It's mostly bad news because the day your weight goes up is a really miserable day. And the third thing is that we expect our body to react more quickly than it really does. If you go on a diet, if you're on a diet for a whole day you're on a diet, and you step on a scale the next day, you expect something good to happen. If you've been on a diet for 3 days, you certainly hope that something good would happen. The body doesn't react this fast. You can be on a diet for 3 days, you step on a scale, your weight goes up. Then you can spend a whole day on Netflix, you step on the scale, your weight goes down. It's confusing and demotivating. So what did we decide to do? We decided to create a scale with no display. We said, let's separate the act of stepping on the scale, which is a good thing, from the act of getting feedback. And then we said, and let's give people feedback. But the first feedback is just, congratulations, you stood on the scale. That's great news. If you did it in the morning. The second thing is we said, let's not give people their weight in pounds. Let's give people their weight in a 5-point scale. You're green, nothing is happening, slightly better, much better, slightly worse, much worse. And it's a running average of the last 3 weeks. It's basically saying, where are you going? You see, information in my world is not about accuracy. It's about helping people understand the relationship between cause and effect. If you're starting to eat differently, I want to tell you, this looks good. If you're eating badly, I want to say, this looks like it's not going in the right direction. It's about where the trend is going, and we want to present information in a way that kind of swallows the variance, so we don't get confused and demotivated. We just finished a study on this. In a control condition, people basically increased weight. This was a group of 1,000 people, low income, relatively obese. A third of them got the regular scale, and they basically gained almost 1% of their body weight every month for 5 months. Very sad result. Our approach, without the display, people stood on the scale a lot. They said that it helped them. And the main thing is they decreased their weight by 0.6% of their body weight every month for five months. Now think about it. We took a household product, a regular household product that we all have. And this product was designed because when we had the mechanical scale, we had to put the display on the scale. But if you look at it from a social science perspective, you say, what does it really do? And you say, it's the stepping, separately from the reporting. We moved to digital. We just confuse people all the time. Let's redesign it. And you can take the same perspective and look at other things. I'll give you one final quick example. We did this little experiment on the Tamagotchi. We created an app with a Tamagotchi, like a little turtle. And the turtle is happy when people exercise, take the medications, and eat well. And the turtle starts getting really happy when people do it. And the turtle starts getting sad when people don't take the medication, exercise, and diet, until eventually it goes really, really sad. And just the turtle by itself doesn't do much. Sadly, I wish it did. It doesn't do much. But our turtle also deletes apps from the phone. So we score how often people use these apps. And as the turtle gets happy, apps just get deleted. Very effective. But I do want to bring one point for discussion, which is the question of paternalism. If you think about the scale is not a paternalistic intervention. It's just giving people information in a way that is compatible with human ability to process information. You think about this angry turtle, that's very paternalistic, right? By the way, they can never delete our app, right? So once they get into it, they're kind of stuck into this thing. And one thing to think about is how paternalistic do we want to be in our design? But the general point is to say, we're designing the world. Think about this auditorium. We've designed chairs, and we've designed lights and air conditioning, and we design all kinds of things. What about our mental world? What about the world that has to do with saving and money and health? Are we putting the same effort in designing in that world? The answer is no. But I think if we start thinking about it better, we could design all of those tools in a way that serves us better. And thank you very much.